Welcome to A Healthy Curiosity, the podcast that explores what it takes to be well in a busy world with self-care strategies from Chinese medicine. I'm your host, Brody Welch, here to support you on your journey of health, happiness, and personal evolution. Welcome to A Healthy Curiosity. I'm Brody Welch, your host, and today we're going to be talking about emotional health as it connects to our physical health, especially in the form of what goes into our mouths. We all have heard how important it is to be eating a whole foods diet, one that's low in sugar, that doesn't involve processed foods, ideally one that doesn't involve all that much in the way of alcohol or caffeine or all the other things that many of us include as part of our diets and our lives. The problem is that we don't necessarily need more information about what to put in our bodies. We're doing it because it's hooked into something bigger. It's hooked into how we're living our lives and how we're feeling on an emotional level. My guest today is Megan Buer. She's the founder of Harmony Restored, a company that's focused on helping individuals heal from the stress that's at the root of their physical and emotional pain. She is a certified Emotional Code Practitioner and author of 2 books on healing, a Reiki healer, and a mom of 3. She has dealt with years of anxiety, panic, chronic stress, food intolerances, adrenal fatigue, and autoimmune disease, and has gone on a journey to health, spending over 10 years researching, experimenting, and finally figuring out all the unique tools she needed to heal herself naturally. Megan, I'm delighted to have you on the show today. Thanks so much for joining me.
I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Love to hear a little bit about what you went through and how you came out the other side.
Yeah, so my story started about 10 years ago, almost to the day actually that we're chatting here today. And it was Halloween night, and 10 years ago, I had a 2-year-old son my son was 2 years old at the time. I still have him. And I was 8 months pregnant with my daughter. Had gone to bed after trick-or-treating and had a fun night, and woke up in the middle of the night and thought I was dying. And, I woke up my husband and I said, I don't know what's happening, but I think I'm dying. And wake up Seth, wake up my son. I need to tell him goodbye. You need to take me to the emergency room. And
what was going on that made you think you were dying? That sounds awful.
Well, I was having a panic attack, but I didn't know that at the time.
Got it.
And, had kind of had anxiety my whole life, but nothing that really affected, or at least I thought affected, my day-to-day living. And so we go to the emergency room, and, this doctor tells me, it's all in my head, and gave me the number to a suicide hotline and told us to go home. And I was not suicidal. And I was so disheartened because I had started on this journey of trying to get healthier, not too much earlier before this night. And my son had been diagnosed with autism, and we started this whole alternative journey. And then all of a sudden this happened to me, and I was like, what's going on? Something's happening in my body. This doesn't make sense. And it really started me down this journey of really digging a lot deeper into alternative health. And so between trying to heal my son and I, we saw doctors and chiropractors and energy healers, and we changed our diet a million times. We took a ton of supplements. We detoxed our home. We did everything that we're told to do over and over again. And my health continued to decline despite my efforts. And it was very frustrating. And
that sounds so discouraging and disheartening, because here you are doing absolutely everything that you can for that everyone's told you to do for your kid, for yourself, and wow, and not being able to see that turnaround.
Yeah. So it was an interesting journey, and really where I landed at the end of it was I was introduced to the Emotion Code, and that is really what shifted things for me and made me really understand the emotional connection to our physical ailments. So I had done some forms of energy healing, but I hadn't really done the emotion code as a form of energy healing that's very specific on healing like subconscious emotional triggers. And when I started doing that with my practitioner, my symptoms very quickly unraveled themselves. I had gotten to this point where I had a Hashimoto's diagnosis. I was like just insanely fatigued on the couch, basically watching my life pass before me, not being able to move and get up and actually participate in my life. And then I started doing the emotion code, and things really started to unravel. And a lot of my emotional issues around food started to resolve. And it was a combination of the emotion code and my own power of choice that really shifted things. So I had done the emotion code and I was feeling so much better, and I felt like I was, I don't know, about 75% of the way back, or back into my life. And I remember it was this beautiful spring day, and we were out. We were out back. We live in Virginia on a few acres, and so my husband was out in the garden, and my kids were running around playing in the woods and splashing in the creek, and I was sitting on the deck reading a diet book. And because I was still in this mindset of there was something wrong with me that I needed to fix, and I thought, okay, this is it. And I don't know if it was a vegan book, a paleo book, I have no idea, like just some sort of diet or health book. And I was searching for that one last answer that, maybe I need to cut out corn and that will be the thing, and that will like change my, I was just in that mindset of looking outside of myself for the answer. And I remember sitting there and feeling so frustrated and thinking, okay, like what's wrong with me? Like there's something left. Like what is wrong with me? And I had this moment where I realized the thing that was wrong with me was the belief that something was wrong with me.
Okay.
And so in that moment, I realized, okay, so if I believe that something is wrong with me, then something is always going to be wrong with me. And I closed the diet book, and I decided that moment that I was going to start living like somebody who has nothing wrong with them. And I started doing things that I had always wanted to do but didn't do because I was too scared, like going out to a restaurant with my friends and doing things that I enjoyed rather than spending my life trying to fix myself. And that day, 3 months from that day, I had blood work taken and my Hashimoto's diagnosis was gone. So
That is amazing. So like you basically threw the rules out the window and you were like, I'm going to act as if I'm somebody who is
yep.
whole and healthy.
Yep. I totally threw it all out. I just said, you know what? I'm going to start listening to my body. I'm going to do what feels good to me. I'm going to stop judging everything and stop trying to fix myself because there's nothing wrong with me. And so my body listened to that and said, all right, let's do this thing and let's heal.
That
And
is amazing. I want to back up because you've mentioned the emotion code a couple times, and I'm sure people are wondering, as I am, what is the emotion code?
so the emotion code is a energy healing modality created by Dr. Bradley Nelson, who is a chiropractor. And it is really specific on the emotional level as far as how I practice this today is because this is what I do now in private practice with my clients is the emotion code. And so the focus is to heal the subconscious emotional triggers, or how Dr. Nelson coined it as trapped emotions that are triggering physical, mental, emotional pain. So I'll have a client come to me, and I work out of a doctor's office. And so I see people that, from a runny nose to cancer and everything in between, anxiety, depression, I've seen it all. And so basically whatever that person's symptoms is, I use muscle testing to figure out what emotions are triggering that imbalance. And as we know in Chinese medicine, each emotion correlates with a certain organ. And so it's always usually, it's so fun to see what comes up because it's always so clear. Oh, like this person's dealing with anger and here's this stuff coming out of the liver. And it's really fun to see these connections to Chinese medicine behind it as well. So that's what it is. We're just finding these old emotional triggers that are causing the symptom, and we clear them and we move on. It's really quick and simple and painless. It's not therapy. Like, we don't have to talk about this stuff. It's just, and it's really nice for people who have been through so much and are sick of talking about
Oh
it that
yeah.
we can go in, clear it, move on. And it's awesome.
And it's the kind of thing that yeah, the people who have done a lot of work on themselves and are well aware of what their issues are, but still feel as though those old patterns have sway. These body-centered ways in, like acupuncture, like the emotion code, like something like EMDR, using the body to help reset the mind can be a really, really important piece. Is this the kind of thing that you have to be in person for?
No, I actually do all of my I I do all of my clients now remotely.
Oh, that's
So,
so cool.
which is really fun. Yeah. So people, usually start with a phone session where we can get to know each other, and they can hear what I'm doing and ask questions. But then at that point, I go even more remote, where I just do the session, sit down in my office and do the session, type everything out, and send them an email. So it's can be very hands off, which I think is kind of a relief for people. People are kind of sick of of trying to fix themselves, and
Yeah.
so I kind of go in there and do it, and they go on with their lives.
So how do you do muscle testing from afar?
So I just do, that's a part of the training in the emotion code
Oh,
certification
neat.
is learning how to do it via proxy. So even when I was seeing people in person at the doctor's office, I would still do it the same way. I would still muscle test on myself. I do the chain link test, and I do that on myself just for them. And it's really just about setting your intention, connecting with that person energetically, and then testing for them, and then disconnecting.
Oh, that's
Um,
so cool. We're going to take a little break from the show right now to bring you an exclusive inside scoop as to what it's like to participate in my self-care bootcamp transformational group, Level Up Your Life. I've got Celia here with me. She's gone through the course twice now, and she is signed up for the annual ticket for next year. Celia, thanks so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. I'm very grateful to be here, Brody.
Thinking back to before the first round of Level Up that you did, what were you struggling with?
Well, I've been seeking for a while on a spiritual path. I've learned a lot over decades of various groups. But the thing that intrigued me the most when you first offered that you were putting forth this course was, do you want to have the support to do the things that you know to do? I have a pretty broad spectrum of ways I know how to take care of myself, but I wasn't always able to implement them. So I would go on spurts of great self-care, and I would fall away from it. And though I am in other support groups and have been for many years, I'd never taken an online class. So I thought, well, I trust you as a guide because I've experienced so much through our one-on-one work that it absolutely intrigued me. I was faltering in many of my practices, also dealing with some physical challenges in my body temple. And I thought, well, this is right along the lines of what I want to do. I'm not trying to use the word, I want to up level some of my practices. So even the name of the course just kind of gave me a little smile. So
Do you mind sharing what physical challenges you were dealing with?
yes, I had been plagued by a bad case of plantar fasciitis and a bit of arthritis in my foot. I deal with the story around food. So I was looking to find more peace in my body temple and to nourish myself more mindfully, healthfully. Again, fits and starts of eating very well for a while and then not eating as well as I would prefer. That is always a big thing for me to find some transformation in that area.
Got it. So you had a whole big toolbox worth of tools that sometimes you were good about using and sometimes not. And
Exactly.
okay, got it. And so what happens? How did you transform?
First of all, it kind of blew my mind in both rounds that I could actually get over my technological fear and do this. And having been in in-person groups, as I'd mentioned, I found it quite wonderful to see everybody's faces and actually feel the connection. Now, I believe in the energetic connection of all of us, that we are all energetic beings. But to do an online course and see the people, and then there is, of course, the resonance of hearing other people that were struggling with the same thing I was, which I forgot to mention, that I'm a tender of people. I care, give, and take care of a lot of people. So,
and that's the thing that historically trips you up, right? Is like
yes,
that
it is.
putting everybody else's needs before your own.
Yes, it is.
And you're in good company. And this,
boy, is that ever the truth, right?
Uh-huh.
One of our members came up with the term that this is a course that fosters exquisite self-care. And I would add the adjective radical, exquisite self-care. So that, I would say, has been one of my biggest pieces, is that it is imperative that I put the tending of my mental, spiritual, and physical household first within me before I tend to my mother, who I am her tender, or my farm, my animals, my wife, the many beautiful souls that I get to be in service to. I have got to fill my own well first. And that's the biggest takeaway I've gotten.
Awesome. That's something that I feel like it can be really hard to really get that at a cellular level, that you have the right to take care of yourself.
Yes.
And to me, it's like, I mean, that use the word online course, and it's like, to me, it doesn't even feel like an online course. It feels like we're all in the same energetic space, but that we are kind of like all in a living room together. We just happen to be spread across the country.
It does feel that way. And that kind of blew me away, because I've been in groups for decades, and I mean, I can just like resonate with the girl over in New York City, you know, as well as the girl across town right here. It's quite fascinating. And I will say, regarding one of the habit changes that is in the course, is about mindfulness. I mean, mindfulness is the thing. And I have found incredible transformation of how I approach my meals, which is a big deal, to sit down and consciously breathe and be present. Now, I knew all about this before. I've taken other courses about that kind of stuff, but some of it has stuck. Is it a perfect path? No. But when I am present for my meal and take those conscious breaths, it nourishes my body differently energetically, and I don't seem to want as much as I had previously wanted. So that is a big piece that I want more of. That's why I'm coming back for more. I want more reminders and moving as a group forward within the habit changes to anchor that even further.
Beautiful. And what changes have you seen? I know that you've done a lot around eating and
Yes.
changing your patterning there.
Yes.
And I'm curious as to the ramifications that has had for your energy, for your pain levels, for your inflammation, and for how you feel about yourself.
Well, when I eat in alignment with what I know is best, and when I am present for my meals, I believe, and you probably will, inflammation of the mind is going to cause inflammation in my foot.
Well put.
When I am de-inflamed in my mind through all of the flurry and eating haphazardly, everything feels somewhat inflamed. There seems to be that much more of it. The cortisol is released, a little bit of energy, the adrenals are kicked in, and I'm like fight or flight and all of that. When I am calm and present when I eat, my body just feels better. Now, have I lost all the weight I want to lose? Heck no. And it begins with this inner transformation. I truly believe, I truly know from previous experiences that to build a consistent practice of this is ultimately going to yield even more physical transformation. And my foot is feeling significantly better. The plantar fasciitis is resolved. I want more radical self-care.
I love it. I love it. And I'm so glad that you're a part of this group. 11 weeks is long enough for those habits for us to be exposed to them and to maybe make a micro shift in that direction. But that what you're describing, it's like 11 weeks isn't enough to give you a new body entirely. That the magic happens when we continue in those few degrees of course correction on the compass. We've got to keep going in that direction. And over time, that takes us into a very different location on the planet than we would have arrived at otherwise. And so it's a matter of keeping on going until you reach the goal. And a lot of times the difference between staying on course and veering off course is having support.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
You use the wonderful term Kaizen, which is making the micro shifts. And that totally resonates with this other concept I read about in a fabulous book a number of years ago called opening the trim tab on a boat. When you turn a mega ship around, the first thing they do before they turn the rudder is they open trim tabs, these little tiny things that start a micro shift in the turning of the ship before they turn the big rudder. So a lot of my trim tabs are open. There's been a lot of shifting and a lot of turning of this vessel into a more consistent path to where I want to go. And I know that signing up for a year is going to help me turn that rudder.
Especially because as we start to turn, we get to a point when we're starting to see a different horizon, and
Yes.
it's terrifying, right?
Yes,
like that there's,
it
it's like an affront to the whole way that we used to be in the world. And you look out over this scary unknown, and it's really tempting to just fall back on the familiar. And this is where I feel like, in my life at least, having other people to hold me accountable for, like, no, it's okay. It feels different and it feels scary, but actually this is good. This is a new thing. This is growth.
That's true. Yeah, it is sometimes very uncomfortable to be the new and improved, empowered self, because the world has been trained by me rolling out the red carpet for every Tom, Dick, and Harry. So, if I pull that carpet back in, people get a little curious as to what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. But actually, you're just not open for business at that point.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Wow, a boundary. Go figure.
Yay, boundaries. So Celia, if you could go back and tell someone in your shoes, or maybe even tell yourself before you entered this program, what would you say to someone who is feeling that call to make a change, to really bridge that gap between what they know they need to be doing and actually doing it? What would you say to help them figure out whether or not to do it?
I would say, if you're looking for a supportive group that fosters self-compassion as one of the utmost practices, so that you can realize the transformations you're looking for in your body and your mind and your spirit, with a mentor and a guide who not only has a wicked amount of knowledge, but it is applied, and she intimately shares from her own personal experiences of transformation, and you want to just be loved up to transformation, then come on in, because it's working for me, and I want more.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, Celia, and for those incredibly kind words of testimonial. I super appreciate it. And I hope that anybody listening for whom this is resonant, book your discovery call, hop on in for the annual pass for 2018, because this could be your year.
Yeah.
So you decided, okay, I'm whole, I'm well, and you started that you actually, your Hashimoto's numbers were there to prove it, that what you were doing was onto something. And I'm curious, like that, since a lot of what you deal with your clients is things like sugar addiction or our emotional reasons of why we eat, I'd love to hear a little bit about how we might explore that on our own. If we are recognizing that we are using food for emotional reasons, what are some steps we can take in our own lives?
Well, I think, sugar has always been very near and dear to my heart. And so that was one thing that was really hard for me when I was getting into alternative medicine. And this is also something that's a lot of my clients come to me for is, I know I'm supposed to be doing this. I know I'm not supposed to be eating sugar, and I'm supposed to be, eating whole foods and la, 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 but I can't do it. Like I love sugar so much, or I love gluten so much, or whatever. And for me, it's twofold in the sense that the most important thing is to tune into your own body and see what it needs. Because I know for me on my journey, the diet confusion it overtook me. I was so stressed out about food. I had no idea what to put in my mouth. I would read one thing about being vegan and one thing about being paleo and another thing about being keto and raw, whatever, all these different diets. I would like research it and it seemed right. And then like I would go eat something that didn't align with that. And then I would have this like panic attack basically and have so much food anxiety. And so many of my clients are in that same boat. And it becomes so deeply confusing and heavy, and that energy creates stress in the body, which creates disease.
Oh, no
And
kidding. And everything that you're saying is, I can really relate to that. I hear that all the time. People are so confused about what to eat, what they're supposed to eat. And we know that diets are essentially fads, that things that science comes in and supports one thing or supports another, and people can twist it to come up with all sorts of different rules and dogmas around what should go into our mouths. And ultimately, we're all different. We all have different physiologies that changes throughout the seasons of the year, throughout the phases in our lives. And really we're so much better served to look within for those answers.
right, exactly. And that's where I that's the biggest piece first, is to trust your own inner wisdom, to trust that your body knows what it needs, to close the diet books and to go within. And even if that means there's a period of like, oh, like I just want Ben and Jerry's or Reese's peanut butter cups or
Mhm.
whatever, you know what, then you go eat it. And if you're actually really being intuitive and honoring your body, you might feel like crap after eating that. And then you've learned that for yourself rather than just like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. But it's coming energetically, it's coming from a different perspective. It's coming from like I'm taking care of myself and that doesn't make me feel good. So I'm not going to eat it, rather than this book told me to do it, but I love it so much, but I shouldn't be doing this. And then it's all this guilt and shame. And so being intuitive is the most important thing. And then the second piece of this emotional eating slash sugar addiction slash sugar craving puzzle is we are constantly told that we shouldn't be eating sugar. Um, but I don't know if I've actually read anything other than maybe some intuitive eating books. I've never read a diet book or a vegan book or a paleo book or whatever that talks about the emotional connection to sugar. Because when somebody tells somebody don't eat sugar, they're not taking into account the actual holistic person that is reading this. That person has an emotional tie to sugar. There's some sort of emotional connection that this person most likely has to sugar. And we use sugar for all sorts of things. So to some people, sugar is their reward at the end of the day. To other people, it's their best friend. To another person, it's their comfort. To another person, it's celebration and it's joy and it's excitement. And nobody's talking about that piece of it. And so when you tell somebody to cut sugar out, you're cutting out their best friend, their joy, their celebration, their comfort, the emotional aspect of sugar is getting cut out too. And there's only so long you can, willpower your way against pleasure. Like the human the human nature, we seek comfort, we seek pleasure. And if we're finding that in sugar, like nobody's talking about the emotional aspect of it. And
Oh
yeah,
yeah, that's actually something we talk about in my coaching program, Level Up, all the time, because we talk about habit change, right? The fact that what we do every day, it's the what we do most of the time takes us in a particular trajectory. If we repeat the same thing every day, and we change that habit, like if it's your daily caffeine with sugar first thing in the morning, or whether it's your ice cream every night or your wine with dinner, like 2 or 3 cups or whatever, that like in a day it's not going to matter, but over time it absolutely will. And so really getting at the root of, well, what am I trying to get out of this? Like what is this doing to my energy system? Because it's not about a lack of willpower. It's really like just what you're saying. It's serving a purpose, and no amount of iron will or being more effective at slapping the cookies away from your hand is going to ultimately fix the imbalance, which is whatever you're trying to get out of it in the first place. So if it's celebration, if it's relaxation, if it's rest, if it's connection, if it's just a hit of serotonin and dopamine, like just what is your life missing? What could you give more of yourself to yourself? Because the taste of sugar is sweet, and we all could use a little more sweetness in life.
Exactly. And it's serving some sort of emotional purpose. And this is, I mean, granted, if you're the kind of person, if you're like my husband, he like doesn't care. It's food is food, and he doesn't care if he's eating salmon or a pint of ice cream. It makes no difference to him. And so he can have sugar, and then it means nothing to him. It has no emotional connection. So it's really easy for him to not eat sugar because it means nothing to him. So, but if you're not like that
Yeah.
and there's some sort of emotional connection to it, you have to do some internal search there to figure out what is this doing for me? What am I trying to numb something out? Am I trying to feel good? Am I trying to feel comforted and relaxed? What is the emotion that you're going after? And then we have to just fill that in other ways. And it sounds kind of simple, but just having the awareness of, oh, sugar is X for me. It's my best friend. It's my companion. It's my joy. So if sugar is your joy or your reward at the end of the day or whatever, then you need to find a different way to fulfill that need. I know a lot of times sugar is people's kind of the way they wind down their reward for getting through the day. And so kind of a little brain trick that I've helped some clients do, and I did this actually when I was trying to get off of sugar, was I would have my sugar at night, just like I always had, but I would add a cup of tea to that. And so I don't remember how long it took, but after a few weeks, I think my brain started to associate that same feeling with the tea as well. And so then I could slowly take the sugar out and have the tea. And I felt the same kind of like feeling like, oh, cozy, like relaxation. The reason why I was eating sugar, I started to feel that way towards the tea. And so
Oh, I
within,
love that. So you were able
yeah.
to honor your need to wind down, but you layered on another habit that was more healthy, and then eventually the was just kind of a part of this need that you were still meeting for yourself.
Right. Exactly. So it wasn't about just like cutting it out and, white knuckling my way through the cravings, but it was, okay, so here's this little ritual that I've created for myself, this little quote unquote self-care ritual of eating sugar in the evenings. Well, I'm going to just add a healthy habit to that and let my brain kind of work out the kinks as far as my brain started to see that tea as something that was bringing me that reward and that comfort and that relaxation in the evening as well. So we can do that, but I think it's really twofold. Adding in a habit like that I think is great, but it's also, again, just having the awareness around what is sugar fulfilling emotionally in someone's life, and how can you fill that in a different way.
Well, and
If
I think you just said it, that in the fact that like that habit wouldn't actually work, that hack for you wouldn't have worked if it was meeting the wrong need.
Right, right, exactly. And so you have to figure out what it is for you. And that's where, if sugar is a way that you feel joy during the day, then what is something else that can bring you joy during the day? And that's just kind of exploration. Sometimes people are like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, well, let's figure it out. Like,
Hmm.
go back to childhood. What did you love to do when you were a kid? What lit you up? Like, let's just start exploring. And if you still don't know, like, just take a stab in the dark. Like, get a journal and start drawing, or take a walk in nature, or, go to lunch with a friend. It doesn't matter what it is, but just start trying different things, and creating these kind of self-care rituals that fulfill that need. So yeah, it's just about shifting the ritual into something else, but still honoring that emotion that needs to be honored,
That is just such an important point, it's so much easier to self-medicate with food than it is to take a hard look at your life and what might need to structurally change, right? Like that if we are coping with a high stress job that we really would like to change our relationship to, if not leave entirely, if there's something going on with relationships with the people in our lives that is gonna take work, it's really, yes, it's ultimately worth doing the work, but in the short term, it sure can feel like that chocolate's doing something. And
Yeah.
and ultimately of course we're going to be in a better place when we have the courage to just be with the discomfort and see what it is all about.
Exactly. So, it's really about kind of, letting go of some of these past triggers that are creating, that connection to food, but just really about honoring where you're at too, and just not judging it, like it's okay to want joy. It's okay to want to feel comfort at the end of the day. It's okay to want all of those things. And we just need to honor it in a way that that's helping you grow and helping you improve instead of the other way.
Well, it's such an important thing to consider, and it's really missing from the conversation around food in general. Megan, if people want to connect with you further, how could they do that?
So most people can just go to my website. It's harmony-restored.com. And that's kind of my hub. So my blog is on there. I'm on Facebook. I do Facebook Lives every week, and we're talking about anxiety and emotional wellness and food anxiety and all sorts of stuff on there. And yeah, you can find me there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being willing to join me in this really wonderfully important conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening today. For more episodes of A Healthy Curiosity, you can visit the iTunes store. If you appreciated today's show, please leave us a review. This helps other people to find the podcast. You could also head to brodywelch.com, where you can find free self-care resources, learn more about Chinese medicine, and let me know what you'd like to hear about on future episodes. I'd love to hear from you. Till next time, be good to yourself.